Yeah, I'm a first-time Mo Monday speaker, and I'm hoping that maybe after taking this risk tonight, some people that have come for the first time and are thinking about speaking might 6 months from now, if that's how long it took me, get the courage to come up and share their story too, because it's fascinating listening to everybody. So Michelle alluded to the fact that I was overseas for about 3 years. And I always like to open with the fact that when I got back, I was a little out of touch with pop culture. And when I came back to Canada, everyone had Bieber fever. And I thought that was the new swine flu. I didn't know what it was. It was kind of scary, and it still is, actually. Okay, forgive me, I have a bit of a crib sheet. I just spent the day doing grade 6 algebra, and I'm afraid also passé composé verbs are going to start coming out. Okay, so squirrels remind me of Rwanda. Seriously, when I see them running around, scurrying up a tree, it always brings me back to 2 teachers that I met in Rwanda, and a story I'll tell you a little later on about squirrels. So it's not the image that comes to mind when you hear the word Rwanda, I'm sure. I'm here to talk to you a little bit about a few stories that revolve around compassion, community, and courage, and how they're my cornerstones, and how a few people that I met while living for a year in Rwanda really impacted those 3 things. So I was teaching in London, Ontario. I was 5 years into my teaching career. I was quite comfortable, and I was feeling a bit of stasis, and I came across this quote by Ayn Rand, and it stayed with me for a few days. It said, "Do not let your fire go out, spark by irreplaceable spark. In the hopeless swamps of the approximate, the not quite, the not yet, the not at all. Do not let the hero in your soul perish in lonely frustration for the life you deserved, but have never been able to reach. Check your road and the nature of your battle. The world you desired can be won. It exists, it is real, it is possible, it is yours." So that quote kind of resonated, and I decided that like my little passion I had for NGO work, I needed to pursue it full time. So I went to Ghana with Habitat for Humanity, and then I took a 1-year placement in Rwanda, living in a small village outside the capital. And I did research before I went. I read the placement profile, I watched documentaries, I wanted to be well informed, I read Romeo Dallaire's book. But I don't think anything could prepare me for what it's like to live in a culture and learn new gestures, ways of communicating, to share Christmas dinner with your 12-year-old neighbor and learn what a child-headed household means. Until before I went to Rwanda, I'd only lived in Oakville, Ontario and London, Ontario. So my perspectives were about to explode big time. So my work placement said I'd be living in Gitarama and working just outside of a village with 20 primary schools. And it was my job to train teachers in child-centered methodology. And 5 years of teaching experience and 8 years as a camp counselor, I thought I was kind of well equipped, had a little bit of travel experience. So I decided also to pack determination, a spirit of generosity, an open mind, an adventure, and a little bit of hopefulness. Once I decided what was in my suitcase, literally and metaphorically, I thought a bit about the images of Africa, and I wondered if the people I would meet would match up to what I'd seen in television commercials. In April 2009, I flew to Kigali, Rwanda on my own. And as I boarded the plane in Toronto, I repeated a mantra to myself over and over. And it wasn't that which doesn't kill me makes me stronger. Kanye West and Nietzsche didn't speak to me and give me courage, and I didn't. Yeah, who came first there? And I didn't reference other challenging moments to amp me up for this one. What I said to myself over and over is, people are inherently good in their hearts. I know that. If people have a choice between bad or good, most people are good in their hearts. And so I got on the plane and flew the 33 hours on my own, just repeating that mantra. So sometimes I learned the hard way about interacting, when it was okay to interact and when it wasn't. And funnily enough, I got asked regularly if my freckles hurt. They don't, by the way. minibus that I took was quite memorable. I was sitting beside a university-age girl, and she was chatting to her friends in Rwanda very rapidly. So she was sitting beside me but facing her friend. And she kind of caught a glance and then looked over and leaned over and, without speaking to me, just reached over and took the hair elastic out of my hair and started stroking my hair. And it wasn't unpleasant, but after a little while I got a little uncomfortable because we weren't speaking, but she was stroking my hair. So I turned to her and struck up a conversation, was practicing my Rwanda with her, and we had some pleasantries and whatnot. And then when her stop came and she got off the bus, she asked the driver if she could pay for my ride, which she did. So I felt a little bit used, but I got a free ride off of it. And I learned the value of just making the effort to connect, even if it's not your first instinct. Just being open rather than kind of shutting it down. Being open and persisting with the connection. So one of my other favorite bus ride stories taught me a little bit about patience and conviction. The conviction that I first held true that people are inherently good. I took a minibus back and forth to my work placement, and we would always stop off at the same spot at the side of the road. And on a particularly hot day, the minibus pulled up, and there was a little one-armed boy that would come up to the window trying to sell different goods. Each time we stopped there, I made a point of chatting with him and building rapport and so forth. So on this hot day, he came up to the window and he said, do you want a water bottle? And I said, oh, yes, please. So I knew that in handing him the 10 francs, he'd have to run across the road, go to the canteen, get the bottle, bring it back, all before the driver pulled away with the rest of our fare. But I trusted him. I gave him the money and off he ran. And the people on the bus started laughing. They said, oh, crazy Mzungu, what are you thinking? He just took your money. This old man in particular was really giving me a hard time. So I turned to him and said in Rwanda, I said, no, he'll be back. Just wait. So the driver assistant is loading on the bus and getting ready to pull away. And I'm looking out the window and getting nattered at by this old man. And I'm 100% sure this kid is coming back. And the driver starts to pull away. I look over and the crowd disperses a bit. A little blue shirt and a big grin, water bottle in one hand, little arm dangling in the other, comes running across the road, gives me the water bottle. I turn and look at the old man. He was quiet the rest of the ride. I just like the fact that the courage to believe in the best possible outcome in people is something I'm proud of. It's something I really strive to kind of hold on to. Just expect the best from people. Yes. So I know that the curiosity about me being a Mzungu probably played a role in the initiating of conversation with me, but I really feel like the friendships and the community I built while I lived there had a certain amount to do with maybe my openness to experiencing those people. And I didn't realize that what I was seeking was already around me, that there's a name for it. Jonathan Wilson spoke about this a few Mondays ago. It's called Ubuntu, which means community. So around 3 months in, I found that coming home from work and seeing all the kids around my neighborhood waiting to play when I came home was the highlight of my day. And so they'd be sitting near the house, often in tattered clothing, and having just sticks and stuff to occupy their time. This was a little bit more like the commercials that I'd seen. It was clear they didn't eat every day, but they weren't crying. They didn't have swollen bellies or flies around them. They were playing tag, king of the castle, and using whatever they had around as a means to entertain themselves. So not unlike kids at home. We'd kick the soccer ball around, and they'd help me practice my Rwanda. I showed them balloons, sidewalk chalk, and duck, duck, goose, and they showed me joy every day. One boy in particular, named Jean-Pierre, lived with his ailing father, and I decided while I liked the privacy of living behind a gate, it was really inhibiting my sense of community. So one day I took the paint set that I had brought over from Dollarama, and I invited Jean-Pierre over to paint with me for an hour. Now he only spoke Rwanda, didn't have French or English because he didn't go to school very often. He was looking after his father. So my night guard translated for us. And we had so much fun, spent an hour painting, that the next week I said he could invite one friend. So the next week Jean-Pierre and Fils came over and we painted. I said, okay, the following week you can each invite one, so there'll be four, okay? Yeah. Fortunately, they didn't listen and 8 kids showed up. And that turned into an art club that I formed. Every Wednesday at 4 o'clock, 45 children aged 4 to 12 came into my house and did art with me. So imagine extracurriculars in Rwanda, why not? There was a huge reconciliation program on while I was there, complete with billboards bearing one sign, one word that said hope. The War Crimes Tribunal were being held in Gitarama and neighboring Tanzania. I spent 1 day a week helping my neighbor Kate write her memoir about what had happened to her sister in the genocide. And I heard of a man who was helping another man rebuild a house. Not such a big deal, not too uncommon, except for the fact that that man had killed his entire family. So is that forgiveness at work? Is that God? I'm not sure, and I don't think I'm really at liberty to comment on it because I was only there 1 year. I don't have answers to those questions, and there were many times then I thought about the atrocities of '94, in particular when my bus crossed over the river that I'd seen in the documentary where bodies were being dumped, and also when I played a charity soccer match and scored 2 goals at the Amahoro Soccer Stadium against President Kagame's wife, and that was the stadium in which Romeo Dallaire had made his last stand, where I had read his book before I went. So it's difficult to talk about or find a context for, and it certainly doesn't appear to be something Rwandans are dwelling on at the moment. The words Hutu and Tutsi are no longer used. Everyone is Rwandan. Whether it's a temporary fix or calm before the next storm, or in fact a community and a culture of faith, forgiveness, and a spirit of generosity, it's impossible to say. We can only know our own hearts. But I saw evidence of parents teaching their children about generosity, and I had these awesome interactions with a girl on a bus, a one-armed boy at the bus stop, Marie giving me a 1 month's supply of her store product, and Jean-Pierre, the 12-year-old, inviting me to Christmas dinner. So this is my Rwanda. My experience in Rwanda didn't change me or make me a better person. I think I was a pretty good person before I went. But remember my plain mantra, people are inherently good, to trust in that. It was something I said to myself to get over the fear of doing it. It was more of a question in my head in April 2009-8. So rather than a statement, but my time in Rwanda certainly affirmed it. We all have hope somewhere inside of us, hope that a family member gets better, hope for a better, more just world, hope for better opportunities or education or more money in our lives. The UN Charter of Human Rights has narrowed down our basic needs to revolve around shelter and education and employment. But I think our true prosperity comes from our compassionate exchanges with one another, and that we are really rich when we focus on that. Sometimes my friends tease me about my idealism, but the Rwanda that I know is of community, compassion, and courage. So maybe my Rwanda is a concept. Teach your children well, teach them to be hopeful, compassionate optimists. So this brings me to the squirrel. During my year, we sent 2 teachers on exchange to England, and 2 gap year students came to Rwanda. It was their first time outside of Rwanda, so we got them tickets to a Chelsea football match and a tour of Buckingham Palace, like the whole 9 yards, and we sent them with some disposable cameras. When they came back, we were expecting them to regale us with tales of John Terry and the amazing food and the shopping. We got the film developed, and 80% of the photos were of squirrels. And they said they were everywhere. There was gray-tailed ones and red-tailed ones, brown-tailed ones, absolutely everywhere. So imagine the squirrel as a metaphor, if you will. Opportunities for compassion are everywhere. Can you see them? So check the road and the nature of your battle. Thank you.